things could be done differently. I think people are always so thrown into their normal way of doing things. There is a better way. You could focus more on your clients. We always say it, like, focus on your people, not paperwork. There's one organization in particular that every single quarter, 3 of their staff members spent 2 weeks writing quarterly reports. And now it takes one staff member 1 hour to do all their quarterly reports.
Wow.
There are probably 1,000 things that we're doing just because that's the way that we do it. Don't feel like you have to do it too. If something doesn't make sense to you, tell me, and we're happy to iterate. We're happy to improve. That's how I want to build this organizational culture.
Hello and welcome to IDD Leader, where each week I help you kick staff turnover to the curb and build the kind of workplace that attracts and retains the best people in human services. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. Do you remember what it felt like when showing up to work was just straight up fun? Because my guest today, that's exactly what he is building, both within his company and he's got a tool, a platform really, that is allowing IDD providers across our whole country to add more fun into the workplace and to reduce unnecessary pain points. My guest is Daniel Caridi. He's the co-founder of Kibu, which is a very fast-growing platform that has a content side, it has an electronic health record side, and frankly, his story's amazing. Hopefully you caught it in part 1. This is part 2 today. But even if you didn't, you can just jump in right here. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're joining me and joining us. But he has given himself and his employees permission to experiment, to play to their strengths. And he's built a platform that has taken satisfaction for direct support professionals with their electronic health records from below 20% satisfaction up to above 80% satisfaction. One story he tells, it used to take 3 people, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks to do a task that now one person can do in less than half the time with literally one person. I can't wait for you to hear the rest of this conversation. So I'll stop giving it all away. And without further ado, let's just dive right in. How have you built trust? This kind of gets back to maybe more like you as the founder or co-founder and your team there, to have, some venture capital backing as a tech startup, and you're inside an industry that, like, we're so skeptical of not you, but of people like you, of tech companies and of startups, and there's just such a culture of kind of lots of regulations. You got federal to state to then how that's, how the money gets reimbursement rates come out and all this different stuff. So I'm just curious, how have you earned trust in that environment? And then also I'm curious, did you ever get it wrong, especially maybe in the early days, or if you've misstepped, what happened, or how did you learn from that?
Yeah, and honestly, there should be a certain level of skepticism, especially, I mean, in this space, it is such a person-centered business that, like, any outside capital putting pressure on a business to hit certain growth targets or metrics or whatever it might be is a concerning thing, because in my mind, the only way to either grow or you have to cut costs. And if you cut costs, you're delivering worse care to clients. So that's super apparent to me in other places. I will say Kibu's in a very fortunate position that we raised 1 round of money and we've since gone profitable, and we're in a really stable state, and we have the majority of the money that we raised still, and we have a lot of organizations and we're growing, and we're not in desperate need to go and raise another round and raise another round or raise another round where we're in this vicious cycle where we have to prove metrics. So we now get to really focus on just delivering the most awesome services. But building that trust is something that takes time. And I think organizations, I mean, it took us over a year to get our first client. Like, you have to be present. You have to ask questions. You have to show up at conferences. You have to sponsor some things. You have to, I mean, we moved our office into a disability provider. And I think that's one of the biggest shows of faith is, hey, sometimes I'm on a call with a provider, and it might be a sales call even, but someone with IDD will walk behind me and just, like, stare at them on the call while I'm on. But
Sure.
It's like a level of realness that we are showing and that we actually care about. And I think the story of how we started kind of reflects that as well, that can kind of penetrate the fact that, yeah, we are outsiders. We are more of a tech-based, tech-forward company. We did raise a little bit of outside capital, but our hearts are in the right place.
Hmm. Well, I
And
think.
you asked the second
Oh
question
no,
too
go ahead.
about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when we've got it wrong. I don't think we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, just as anyone would in growing a business. Something that I'll flag as something that we've done wrong in the past is taking on a client before we know we're ready to take them on. You know,
Hmm.
sometimes you get excited by the prospect of getting another sale and growing our numbers and like some of what I just talked about. But we've realized that ends up biting us a little bit because now they're relying on us for compliance and there's something that they needed that we didn't actually support at the time. And now we're scrambling to build out. It changes our roadmap. It changes our direction, like what we're really trying to focus on. They're not happy. We're struggling. And we've gone through that now twice. And now we're so purposeful about being like ultra transparent about exactly where our product is, finding out exactly what their compliance needs are, telling them exactly like where we support it or where we don't currently support it, but where it is on our roadmap. And just that transparency alone has really helped our process. And it's helped us stay out of situations where we have to adjust our roadmap because we're working on some really exciting things
Hmm.
that we don't want to delay.
Yeah. I think there's a lesson in what you just shared. It reminds me of, it was actually an interview I think I was on maybe 3 years ago. And I feel like I had just talked to a number of different organizational leaders where they're talking about, oh, we're growing like this, we're growing like this, we're growing like this. And I got on this call with um, this one leader, and she said, no, we're not trying to grow any bigger. We're just trying to grow better. And I was like, what? It's kind of so countercultural. And she said, well, we know who we serve and we're just really trying to serve them the best that we possibly can. And maybe somewhere down the road, you know. And I think there's a lesson there because I mean, I feel like I've seen this play out a number of different times, actually not just in IDD industry, I've seen it in other industries too, but where if you say more yeses than what you can deliver on, you can end up at a net loss, both financially, but actually more even like at the heart of the mission, because if the system breaks when you said that yes, then usually there's pretty significant fallout, and there's people that kind of they usually get some people will get burned out. Certain people will get burned out in that, often then leaving, and then all of a sudden you have this bigger gap and hole than when you started. I'm not saying that's your guys' story, but I'm just saying I actually think there's a lesson in there for leaders, not just in your kind of in the tech world or in the software world, but even for providers that there's got to be this balance between, yes, we want to say yes to all the people we want to serve, but we also need to respect where's our sweet spot.
I completely agree. And you know what? A lot of people appreciate that transparency of saying, hey, you know what? We think we could do 80% of what you need extremely well, even better, like way better than what you're doing right now. But there's this piece that we don't actually support yet. It is on our roadmap 4 months from now. So what we're going to do is like, we don't want to sign you up right now. How about we keep you in the loop and we're going to check in 2 months from now and tell you how our development is on this extra feature. And then 4 months from now, we can reassess whether we're ready to move forward and onboard you. And people appreciate that level of transparency. And it's very rare that like there actually is a strict deadline. Oh shoot, we need to switch over systems by X date or Y date. And sometimes that does happen. But a lot of times it's just like more exploratory conversations where they're totally good with that kind of like, hey, yeah, let's make sure this is a long-term relationship. Let's make sure it works for both parties.
Hmm. I've got a question in a different angle here. And I don't know that it may be hard to answer this because 400 is it's a good size of agencies that I don't know if there's enough clarity on the trends. But here's the question, and you take it or leave it, I guess. But I'm curious when providers are first deciding to adopt Kibu, are you finding that it's providers that, and again, I'm not trying to have you speak badly on any providers that that are customers of yours, but are you finding it's people that feel like they're drowning and they're like, we need a life raft, okay, this is it, and then they like experience Kibu that's kind of, and there's a sort of a different culture, different vibe that you're bringing with this that may or may not end up spilling out into other areas like staff appreciation or other things? Or I'm curious, have you found it where it's almost like some of the stronger organizations at any size, but they're like, let's level up. Okay, cool. We found something that's even better. And then it's almost like more of a seamless, like the culture that you guys are trying to bring, where there's employee first kind of culture. And you didn't say that's my word, so I don't know if that totally. Correct me if that's not really where you're at, but speak to that in any way if you are able to.
Yeah, I think it's a whole spectrum of our like our clients. So you will get some organizations that are, yeah, they're super overwhelmed. They're underwater. They're trying to swim in their best possible way and figure things out, and nothing's working for them right now. I would say that's a small fraction of the clients. There is on the other side of that spectrum exactly what you just explained. Super tech forward. They're always looking for the most modern thing. They're always looking like to help operate in the best possible way, employee first. Unfortunately, that's also a small percentage of our clients.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of clients fall into the middle ground where they don't know that there's a better way to do things. They're doing their normal day-to-day flows. They're using the legacy systems. This is just the way that things operate. And then when we show them the different features that we have and the different ways that it could operate, you like see it click in their mind. Like their minds are blown about, wow, I can change the way that my organization operates. It's really going to help improve so many different functions of what we do. And a lot of the organizations that we sign up are in that middle ground where, you know what, they're comfortable, but they're not on either end of that spectrum.
Okay, I want to lean into that. If you're able to share, is there a story that helps show that, especially where maybe the influence went beyond just how we do paperwork or computer work, but where like that light bulb moment, you just described a powerful moment that can happen when someone sees like, oh, I didn't even realize I've been operating under these assumptions that this is the way things have to be. And now
Yeah.
there's a new and better way. And sometimes that can actually have domino effect in other areas of life. I mean, I've seen this on an individual level. I'm curious, do you have any stories that would kind of fit that bill?
So many stories. I mean, I've heard countless testimonials or I mean, there's one organization in particular that every single quarter, three of their staff members spent 2 weeks writing quarterly reports. So 2 weeks every single quarter, three staff members. And now it takes one staff member 1 hour to do their quarterly, like all of their quarterly reports.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's just one quick example, but also like where I told you before, there's normally a staff member checking whether records are complete and who's missing their records and tracking them down. That's a staff role that could be repositioned. Those quarterly reports could be repositioned. Every staff member doesn't need to do 30 minutes or an hour of documentation every day. It could be a few minutes just based on their quick voice note inputs. And just that efficiency compounded across an organization. Think about how much compounded like time and energy and effort and money and resources could be rededicated back towards programs and back towards clients. It really does change the way an organization operates.
Hmm. It makes a lot of sense to me. I feel I don't know if anyone ever tells you this. In our conversation, I feel like it's permission giving. Like what you guys are doing, it's permission giving to think outside the box first and foremost, but then secondly to say, wait, what if there's a better way? And just kind of to re-examine things that haven't been re-examined in a long time. That goes far beyond just an EHR or the record keeping, but I mean
You
far
are
and
right,
wide.
and sometimes it is like I'll join onto a call and I'll be asking questions, and I'm not saying this is every organization, but sometimes there's a executive director and like a someone that's a little bit more in the day to day with the DSPs, and I'll ask questions like, "How long does it take your staff members to do their daily documentation?" And the executive director is like, I'm not sure." And then the person that's in the day to day is like, "They probably take about 40 minutes average each per day." And you could see the executive director be like, "Wait, they're taking 40 minutes per day to do their documentation." So it's either that, yeah, they don't know there's a better way, or they don't know some of the issues, or yeah, it's just expected. Yep, every staff member has to do their documentation. And I guess you are right, giving permission to explore new ways and
Mhm.
use modern technology that's been applied everywhere else, but just hasn't been applied in this vertical, I think is important.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, this is my angle. I see such huge implications on the staffing, retention, like that whole side of it, because again, that's the world I'm coming in at, the angle I'm coming into this world from. And the implications there are very big. Even just the feedback loop. I'm not going to go on my soapbox about that, but when people don't know what their boss thinks of their performance until every 6 months, I'm sorry, I am going on the soapbox. There's a problem if that's the only time that they're like, it's that continuous ongoing feedback that one builds trust. It also brings out the best in people, and then it also
Absolutely.
avoids a lot of the big problems started as small problems that went unaddressed. So
Absolutely. And I think technology is just a small piece of that equation, but you're entirely right.
Yeah, yeah, I'll step back off the soapbox. So, but I want to ask you this, because we're kind of talking about innovation here, the last couple minutes, or thinking outside the box. If there's an executive director that's listening right now, or maybe an HR director, they're listening. They want to build an organization that attracts and keeps great people. They're not just thinking about buying a platform, but they want to kind of apply the thought behind Kibu, if that makes sense. What's a principle from how you've built Kibu that they could apply inside their own agency tomorrow?
I think there, I feel like every one of your questions, there's a couple of different answers I could give, and I want to touch on each one of them.
Sure. Take
One
your
is
time.
we really focus on tech enablement in the organization, even internally to Kibu. Like we're very AI forward, and what that means is like we actually dedicate a budget towards exploring new AI tools. We actually dedicate time to review those new AI tools. We like and we go piece by piece. We'll start small. We'll like say, hey, there's one thing that we're doing very manually right now. How do we make it more repeatable? How do we make it covered by these different AI tools? So what that's allowed us to do is really help modernize every one of our tasks internally. And what that means is like, I'll give you one example for when I'm talking with a sales prospective sales client. Um, you know, those meeting recorders that are on every video meeting nowadays, we
Yes,
have
with a
a similar
with a
one.
very with a very like a very AI voice. They didn't get it. This meeting is
Yeah,
being recorded.
exactly. So we have
Yes.
some of those, but they'll listen to it. And what it'll do is it'll transcribe the whole meeting. And right when I hang up with the client or prospective client, it'll fully transcribe an email follow up to them that says what we talked about, what the key points were, what the pricing is, where we'll really help address the issues that they brought up. And it'll put it in my Gmail outbox and it'll create a one pager about our partnership in Kibu branding about like
Hmm.
us actually collaborating with them, attach that to the email. So now, right when I hang up with you on our first demo together, I can go to my email outbox and it's already a written email with a one pager about our collaboration and it's tailored specifically to you and exactly what we talked about. That, like, just that example for one person, let alone all my salespeople, let alone every function of the team, allows us to operate extremely efficiently on a scale that's beyond what a team of our size would normally be able to handle, but also hiring, and this is maybe tough for a lot of folks, but hiring exceptional talent and allowing them to operate in their best possible way, because their best possible way might not be my best possible way. And their communication style might be different from my communication style. And like getting on the same page, but giving them the freedom and the ability to operate and do what they were hired to do has been a really big unlock for us too.
Hmm. Yes. 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 I really think that with what you just described, organizations that are crushing it, the positive outliers I mentioned earlier, who have exceptionally low turnover rate, there's several common threads, but one of the common threads is people that work there don't just fit the role. That they What they'll do is they'll try to keep tailoring the role as much as they can to the person. Now, foundationally, when you're doing a ratio staffing shift work, there's some constraints on that. If you're a DSP, we need you to do the medication administration and if it's a 24/7 supervision situation, you have to be doing that. But it's still, even within that, there's so many ways to create play and experimentation. Like if you find out
Absolutely.
someone's good at music, say, well, why don't you bring your guitar in to work? Like you can just jam out for 30 minutes during your shift.
exactly. Giving
they're going
people the flexibility and the ability to move, and also giving them the ability to communicate up and down the hierarchy chain. Because I think I already explained it a few times here. It's like a lot of times people become comfortable with systems and become comfortable with the way that things are done. And it takes someone new to come in and be like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why don't we try it like this? And you know what? They're probably right. And it would be a lot better. But just because everyone's so comfortable with the way that things are done, they don't think like that. So giving a DSP the ability to communicate across the whole organization and voice their concerns or voice their interests or voice where they think innovation is possible, and celebrating that and publicly celebrating that so other DSPs or other staff members feel able to do the same thing. I think that's also very important.
Absolutely. Have you seen that play out at the organizational level? And if so, what did that look like?
Yeah, actually, when we hire any new staff member, I explicitly tell them there was this write up, and I'm actually not remembering who wrote it up and what the name, but I always send it to them, and it pretty much just says exactly what I just said. Is there are probably 1,000 things that we're doing just because that's the way that we do it. Don't feel like you have to do it too. If something doesn't make sense to you, tell me, and we're happy to iterate. We're happy to improve. We built our entire platform based on iterations and improvements based on feedback. And that's how I want to build this organizational culture too. And how we do meeting structures, how we do feedback, everything. So I'm always open to feedback. And I explicitly tell every one of our new hires, please, if something doesn't make sense to you, it probably doesn't make sense.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. That's really great. I do want to also kind of, I guess, go into you as a leader for a minute here. You're running this fast growing company that almost happened by accident. I mean, that's not totally fair, but kind of. It certainly wasn't your intent when you started the gym classes, it sounds like. Um, and now you're, things like Forbes 30 under 30. Um, but I would imagine, and I haven't walked in your shoes per se, but I would imagine that building a startup also has a lot of humbling moments. I'm curious if there's anything that you've had to unlearn as a leader in the last couple of years, and if you're willing to share it.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that the role has changed over the years. I mean, originally it was me doing a dance class and it was just me and my friend who invited me to the class. And now we have almost 30 full-time staff members and a sales team and a customer success team and a tech team and a content development team. Like, yeah, it's completely changed over the years. One thing that and I think it's the phase of where we are as a company right now, is I'm now learning that I can't be involved in everything. I'm becoming a bottleneck to a certain degree in a lot of the functions because I have to have a say or I have to have my hands in it or I have to do something. The more I release my own grasp and trust the staff members that I hire to do awesome jobs to actually do those awesome jobs, the more we can grow, the more we can scale. Because I'm only one person. I only have a certain capacity myself, but a whole team of 30 team members is able to do a whole lot more than I can. So I've be, I'm slowly shifting into more of a coach. If I can get all 30 of my team members to operate 15% or 20% better, that compounded benefit is way beyond just what I'm able to do on my own.
Hmm. Yeah, that's insightful, and it makes sense even from just like the growth spot of where you are now. Um, if all spokes lead to the middle, I mean, it you can only build a wheel so big if that's the case. Like, or yeah, no, I'm tracking with you. Um, I guess I'm also really curious. I don't know how much you can share, but what's what's coming down the line? I mean, what's the future of Kibu looking like?
It's getting really exciting. I mentioned before, we've added on billing and EVV integrations into our system. So we are kind of the whole end-to-end solution now. Like every software that a provider would need for compliance, we could support. We're going one step further and like building out state dashboards and systems from the state's perspective. So there's that whole sales avenue on that side. but I'm getting really excited about modern technology and how much further we can go. Because hypothetically, I mean, as easy as Kibu makes it, it's still an EHR. It's still a compliance system. It's still, maybe it doesn't take 40 clicks to do your documentation. It takes 4 clicks to do your documentation, but you could go further. Like with agentic AI, like there's no reason why I couldn't just speak into an interface or type into an interface and ask it to do something, and it goes and executes that task for me within the EHR and visualizes it with generative UI. So like hypothetically, if there's a dashboard that says what DSPs need to do, and then one interface where they could just do it, and now they don't have to learn anything about the system, it's just like one page. That's really exciting to me, is making things easier and easier and easier down to the point of as easy as you could possibly go.
Hmm. Yeah. The and it, just in case listeners aren't as familiar with this, just came up in a recent interview, so hopefully they heard that. But it's very possible some of this would be the first time that someone's tuning into IDD Leader. Um, I'm only myself very recently familiar with agentic AI, although I know
I
what you're
could
talking about
explain
now. But
a
maybe
little
just explain,
further.
just to give a little bit more of like, wait, what? How would that work? Or like to help connect the
Yeah,
dots for someone that's not reading, articles all the time on this type of stuff.
yeah. So what that means is a staff member could just explain and say, "Hey, I just gave Clayton his morning medication." And it'll say, "Oh, I see 2 medications for Clayton. Was it this one or was it this one?" And then you say, "Oh, it was the first one." And then it says, "Did he take it himself? How did he take? Did he refuse it?" And then you say, "No, he took it himself. It went good." And now it goes and logs you in your EMR, in your med administration record for you. Or in that same interface, you say, "Hey, I just did a dance class with Athena," and it follows up, "How long did you do it? What level of prompting did you use? How did she like it, et cetera, et cetera." And now it goes and logs your service record for you. Or you
Hmm.
upload an ISP, an updated ISP document, and it goes and updates all like the life plan or ISP goals for you. Everything's done in one interface, and the system will recognize what you're trying to do and accomplish that goal. But because it's for compliance, what's really important is using generative UI to actually show you that it's doing it correctly.
Hold on, what's UI? That's again, you're talking to people that might not know what that
It's
means.
basically the user interface for what you're actually developing.
So that's what
So
they see.
yeah,
That's the
so
forward
yeah, what they
facing side of
say
it.
exactly. So what that means is like, hey, I'm updating an EMR log, but what that actually means then is it'll show that that EMR log was actually updated in the right way. So you're not just assuming that it did it in the right way, that it actually is done in the right way.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, so I see that you're like really leaning into the possibilities that are here or
Yeah,
that
and
are
this is
about to be
where
here.
a lot of technology is headed. It just hasn't been applied well in this space, and we're the ones to do it.
Hmm. Okay. Wow. If you could put one sentence on a billboard that every human services executive in America would see tomorrow, what would it say?
I would just say that things could be done differently. That I mean, yeah, I think people are always so thrown into their normal way of doing things that there is a better way. You could focus more on your clients. We always say it like focus on your people, not paperwork. And we want to shift that back towards the people more so than the paperwork that it has been going towards recently.
Hmm. Absolutely. And what do you wish that you knew at the very beginning about this sector, or about whether that's the people, the culture, the regulatory complexity that you know now, but you kind of wish you had known earlier?
I've been asked this before, and actually I think it's kind of nice that I didn't know anything going into this. Because if you told me day one, hey, you're going to be building out a full compliance EHR system with medication administration and integrated billing and electronic visit verification and everything that goes into an EHR in this space, and by the way, a whole content platform at the same time, like I would have told you that's way too daunting of a task. I don't know Medicaid compliance for every specific service in every specific state. But the fact that we've just kind of been naive and asked questions and built out piece by piece until we ended up developing a whole EHR and connected system. the fact that we kind of stumbled our way through this until now we have actually have a solid product and a solid vision for where we're going with the product. I think it was kind of nice that I didn't know what we were going into.
Yeah. Sometimes that is the gift of being the new guy or the new gal, is that
Yeah,
on the one hand, you don't know what you don't know, and that can be a liability. But on the other hand, sometimes not knowing is the best thing ever.
exactly.
Yeah. That's really yeah, that's really fascinating. Um, I think I want to just kind of maybe ask you one or two more questions here as we're looking to wrap it up. Um, what do you think are some of the biggest? You identified this huge friction point and have Kibu has been kind of founded on it or built around it, or and kind of two things because you also have the whole content side as content platform as well. I'm curious if there's other friction points or gaps that you're seeing, even if you know that Kibu's not going to be the one to tackle it, but now that you're seeing in this sector or in this space that are worth pointing out.
I think something big that has yet to be addressed in a large way is the fact that a lot of folks with IDD, I think over 50% of folks with IDD have a coexisting, co-occurring mental health uh, condition. That to me, I heard that statistic and I was like blown away by it. I didn't know that that was so real and apparent. And I don't know if there's a lot of technologies being developed to support that, whether that be telehealth because you need a yeah, I mean, people can't show up to a doctor that has a specialty in IDD, and I think there's an opportunity there. Also, I heard a wild statistic that 33%, or right around 33% of folks with IDD die from preventable causes, which
Hmm.
to me is also an astronomical statistic. And just better research, better updates, like just information around that is I think so important too. And I don't know I know intellectability and HRST is doing some information around that too, but I feel like more people should be aware of those two statistics.
Yeah, no, those are very striking. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, Daniel, I so appreciate the things you've shared today, taking the time to share about Kibu, but also kind of your journey and then the fresh insights I think that you're bringing to this space. And I'm excited to keep seeing where Kibu goes in the future in the coming days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on and chatting with me for an hour.
Wow, wow, wow. Just action packed with all kinds of really valuable insights and information. And frankly, to hear from an industry disruptor, I feel privileged that we had him on the show here and was so joyful to share it with you as a leader. I always try to leave you with an action item. Here's my action item, and it might not sound like action at first, but hear me out on it. I want to give you permission to play again. I want to give you permission to take a deep breath and to think, how could things be different? Or what would it look like if this were more fun? Or what would it look like if this one whole pain point just suddenly wasn't so painful for you, but really for your staff, for everyone that works your organization? Honestly, sometimes the best action is just to reflect and to realize, oh, we've been unaware of the water we're swimming in, and there might be a whole different way to do things. So, yeah, if you want to call that an action item, that's your action item for this week's episode. Now, I have a free resource that I love sharing with people. In fact, I'll be soon doing a whole presentation to an organization, like a whole day long presentation based on this one resource because they loved it so much. But it's the 7 warning signs, quiet warning signs that your supervisors are burning out their staff. Most people get promoted as supervisors because they were the best frontline worker. They were the best direct support professional. But then there's a whole different skill set when you're managing people. And so this resource starts to identify some of the things you might be hearing in the hallways or those early warning signs that things aren't as good as they could be. And then it gives some solutions of how you can help to remedy that without having to redo your whole system. So you can get that for free. It's at iddleader.com/burnout. And of course, this is kind of implied, but if you haven't checked out Kibu, you should totally check out Kibu. Maybe it's not for everybody, but wow, I think there are a lot more providers that would benefit from what they're building there. It's I'm completely fascinated by it. And no, I'm not being paid to say that. Although maybe that's a good idea down the road. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Anyhow, um, listen, you have my respect. I'm cheering you on from my little section of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to wherever you are listening this. You are in the trenches, or you're leading the people in the trenches, and your work is making a difference. So until next time, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.